Hi, all. Thanks for joining here. We're excited to be chatting with you about best practices for integrating AI into your product. I'm Grant Duncan, VP of Marketing at Voximplant, and we have Kishore and Alexei with us as well here. We'll dive in here in a minute, but I just wanted to make sure that you all know, feel free to chat in any questions you have, and we'll make sure to save some time at the end to talk about those. You can use the chat that's in this Livestorm webinar, or you can use the LinkedIn page that was created to chat. Or if you have us on Twitter directly, you can also direct message us as well. We'll take it in multiple ways and then make sure to save some time to address those at the end. So to get started here, can you both introduce yourself? Who are you? What's your role? And how long have you been at the current role for?
So Alexei, you want to go for it?
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Alexei. I'm CEO and co-founder of Voximplant. I've been doing that. I've been working on Voximplant for the last 10 years, to be honest. Voximplant itself exists little less than that, but in terms of the technology which is behind it, and usually it takes more time to create the end product, it's around 10 years. And Voximplant is about simplifying and democratizing the access to communications for everybody, especially for developers and businesses around the globe. So that's what we are working on.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kishore here. I am the product manager for Contact Center AI, what we call CCAI, here at Google. And before being a product manager, I was the lead solution architect for the same solution here at Google. And I've been at Google almost for more than 3 years. And before Google, I've spent like almost 18 years in the industry working on different machine learning and AI products in speech technology, NLU, in financial technology, specifically derivatives and high frequency and low latency trading.
Awesome. Thanks for that background. It must have been a fun shift to go from solution architect to PM, as you're, I imagine, very hands-on and really understand the product well. That's cool.
Yeah, I miss my hands-on days. Now it's more about like strategic and go-to-market and thinking about like working with customers in a broader sense. But yeah, I miss those days when I was hands-on.
Sure, makes sense. So just to start us out, why do you both think that there has been an increasing demand for integrating AI and ML into business processes and into products?
Sure, I can go first. Last, I think if you go back like 4 or 5 years, right? AI has opened up new possibilities. We have seen a lot of research happening in AI field, and this research has moved into solving business-specific problems. And to name a few, like in our context, speech recognition was the door opener for everything which followed after speech recognition. So if you cannot have good speech recognition, you cannot do anything beyond that. There are vision problems, right? Like we have gone to a level of accuracy in vision, like 95% accuracy, that you could solve many, many problems like manufacturing defects, identifying defects into manufacturing process or into like healthcare. So all these things which you could never solve with traditional programming are now possible, and we can solve it using AI and machine learning. And that is exciting for the business world now.
Yeah, makes sense. And in addition to that, I think that, every day people are kind of spending less and less time on some standard tasks. So we like to do something smart, and, we want to spend our time in a good way. So machine learning and AI helps people to kind of, get away from routine tasks, which can be really well handled by AI. Actually, it's not only about speech recognition, which helps with that. We have a lot of other cases where machine learning and AI can be helpful, and I'm definitely looking forward to discuss it during this webinar. Like Vision API, so it's like photo processing. A lot of stuff is going on with ML and AI technologies. But my feeling about it is that the huge demand is because we can spend people's time on what's really important instead of these routine tasks, which we've been spending time on before machine learning became not like a commodity, but it's already becoming like a commodity in many industries and verticals, I think.
Yeah, that is interesting. What just based off what you're saying there, what are some routine tasks you've both seen that are getting automated by AI now?
I think first is like speech. I think we both are, of course, we live in the world of like CC, contact center and speech. So,
Right.
The speech technology is in every home, right? Google Assistant, like other assistants we have had, and almost everything you buy. I just recently bought a television, right? And of course, being a Googler, I bought an Android TV. I can speak to my remote, right? So speaking to my remote is amazing, right? Now I don't have to use clunky remote where I'm typing stuff. And those things are now getting into our life, right? May that be like fitness stuff we are doing, right? Fitness tracking and all the information we are collecting and using machine learning and AI in fitness world is also fascinating. So it's all over us, right? Sometimes it's obvious and sometimes it's not.
Yeah, another good example here is let's say call transcription. So before speech recognition powered by AI appeared and reached really good levels in terms of the accuracy of that recognition, people been doing that manually. So you had to listen to the whole conversation and write it down, and it was the whole process. So I think that there are a lot of other examples, but this one is a good one. Another one is voice analytics or speech analytics, which also can be automated now. So you can figure out which calls were good ones and which were not that good. Sentiment analysis, and we can keep discussing it forever. But there are just a couple of examples like that.
Yeah, those are great examples. And so when you both think about this, how do you measure and track the effectiveness of AI in your product? Because of course, people want to actually know, is it working? Am I getting some kind of ROI?
So my recommendation is that we have to stop looking at it from like pure AI and machine learning perspective, right? Like, and when I'm talking to the customers, they ask me that, what is your word error rate, specifically for speech recognition? And my answer to that is word error rate is very much a number which you get from the data set we use for training and validation and testing. But that is not a relevant number. AI, when it is embedded within the product, we have to look at what are the benefits the product getting out of that AI. So for example, when together we offer our solution in the healthcare, right? Let's assume there's a healthcare customer. They should not look at the word error rate, but they should focus on how well the AI is working with respect to healthcare domain, right? How better it is recognizing the healthcare words and how we can fine tune the AI in that space. True is for NLU aspect of our offering, right? That are we purely looking at NLU with respect to intent matching, or how it is better at solving your specific problem in your domain? So I recommend that the business users focus on the end results of the AI rather than focusing on the AI machine learning aspects of the AI. Those are getting commoditized, right? Like if you see speech recognition, a lot of organizations are offering speech recognition now as a solution. So you can go ask all of them their word error rate, but that's not going to solve your problem. Look at how it functions within your business domain is what I would focus.
Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense.
I completely agree because word error rate is a often metric for success of something, but usually it's more about what type of recognition you use. So let's say all business cases are different, so you want to have different data sets which you use for a specific type of recognition, and of course we all like to use free-form recognition, like Kishore mentioned. So he likes his built-in TV speech recognition, which should be kind of free-form, at least a little bit, unless you are, kind of searching for something on YouTube. But in the end of the day, when it comes to business domain, it means that you want to have, I don't know, addresses which are recognized better, or time, or destination. So it's really business-specific thing. So in the end of the day, what you are going to measure is how your current model behaves with your real customer base or user base. Then you will be collecting information about kind of cases when it doesn't really work well enough, and you can fine-tune your model or whatever you have as a backend. So that's how you usually approach the tuning of the whole ML AI-based solution. And apparently effectiveness can be measured in many, many ways and aspects here, just because it's, business specific.
Yeah, interesting. And, there's, I think, lots of industries that could benefit from this, both on the B2C side and the B2C side. What are a couple of areas where you're seeing the most activity, or where it's maybe most suitable or creating the greatest effectiveness? You mentioned healthcare earlier. Are there some other examples that you're seeing?
Across the board, right? Like manufacturing, right? Heavily now uses AI and machine learning, vision AI for, like, again, something I mentioned earlier, that detection of like issues, right? Even contact center modernization. If you speak to most of the CXOs within contact center space, they want to bring in AI, right? And not only to, like, it's not, the goal is not to replace humans with AI, right? And that, I think, is a wrong perception about AI. AI can make us better, right? Augment the humans, which is the goal. So I would say I see more of the impact of AI in B2C space rather than B2B space, right? And I would still not draw a line that here it's more or here it's less, but just because of the nature of the business we are in, I see that B2C is heavily influenced by AI.
Yeah, I would say that probably it seems that B2C is heavily influenced by AI because generally you collect data sets out of B2C segments. So even in case if you are using B2B, using it in B2B domain, so it's still about collecting information from customers, which are just consumers coming to you for customer service or to buy something. But I would agree that there are a lot of different cases in modern life where AI is used and we don't even think about it. Like, let's take modern mobile phone. So we all do photos on it, and every new mobile phone has AI chip built in to speed up the processing of your photos, because there is no way to kind of get that type of quality of photos, let's say it's night mode or when there is not enough light, with optics available for mobile devices. So basically, it's called computational photography, but all computational photography is based on AI. And it's just one of the examples, but we are talking about like millions and millions, or if not billions of phones on the market, which are using AI on a daily basis. There are some other stuff like battery improvements and screen time, whatever. So it's been used for other cases as well, but computational photography is something which we really can see easily. It's one of the good examples, but there are many others, as Kishore mentioned. So I think that B2C helps AI to get more data and to learn about cases and patterns where ML and AI can be most, can bring most value. Let's say it this way.
And I'll add to, like, I'll give two more examples, and these are kind of like extreme examples, is like power management. Like a lot of our data centers, I believe almost all of them, power management tools are AI based, right? So we switch on and switch off like the cooling and heating based on the AI. Of course, you can have it in your own home using Nest thermostat. So that's for like global warming, right? We are using AI from the core, like at the lowest level, to help, right, consume less power, spend less energy. So that's one extreme, like where we are using AI for the greater good, of course. And on the other side, for gaming, I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of gamers here, like upscaling, right? Rather than your GPU spending a lot of energy in generating like upscaled image, let AI do that work, right? So that GPU consumption, like GPU usage is less, and AI can upscale your images. And now GPUs have AI cores, right? CUDA cores are available in almost all the modern GPUs.
Yeah, and one of the new things which you can find today is actually using audio and video encoding and decoding using AI, which is pretty new stuff. It still has its issues, but it's very promising because there was no significant change in the way how we encode and decode audio and video data when it comes to data transfer for video conferencing or just for streaming. Today, AI technologies allows you to kind of reconstruct images and reconstruct voice or audio without having the full data set, because they've been trained with some other types of data, which is, I think it's cool. I mean, I'm not sure it will be able to produce 100% similar image, but it can significantly reduce the data transfer requirements, and it can be useful for standard cases, like when you don't have good internet connectivity, and we still have a lot of places on Earth where it's the case. And if you go further than that, people are trying to send data between Earth and to other planets and spacecrafts, so it can be also pretty helpful there.
Yeah, one of the things that I hear both of you talking about is that from a customer or consumer standpoint, their experience is still pretty similar, whether or not AI is in the mix, which is, I think, an interesting thing for, say a product or engineering team. When they think about that experience, how do they build this in to just keep the experience the same or even better? Kishore, jumping back to our kind of core talk here, I know you're working heavily, as you mentioned, with Google's Contact Center AI. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you're doing there and about what that is?
Sure. So Contact Center AI is a solution which we have created at Google to focus on the AI augmentation for contact center as a space, right? And that's why we partner with like you guys, right? Like Voximplant. And what the technology does is that it has various components. For example, Dialogflow CX is your virtual agent where you can build voice as well as chat bots. And underlying technology uses like speech to text, text to speech, and NLU. And most of the leading edge research we do, like BERT transformer model and things like that, are used within these technologies, but the data essentially is more or less conversational data, because AI has two facts. One is the algorithm, the model itself, but the data is very, very critical, right? I cannot train a conversational AI, a machine learning model with Wikipedia data, because we don't talk like that when we jump on a call with our call center. The other two technologies is agent assist AI. And as I earlier mentioned, that the goal is not to remove human from the equation, but to augment and help humans. And here, agent assist AI, as the name suggests, is helping human agents to perform much better, right? Get the answers much faster as soon as the customer says something, search those answers using AI and machine learning, and provide the information to the agents so that they can help the customers. And the final product is Insights AI, as Alexi mentioned earlier, that analytics. Today in contact center, not 100% of the calls are transcribed. So if you're not transcribing every call, you don't know what is happening within your contact center. And by virtue of that, you don't know what's happening with your products and services. So with Insights AI, you could transcribe all the calls in real time, but extract a lot of KPIs like average hold time, customer sentiment, agent sentiment, what were the highlights of the calls, things like that.
Yeah, that's really cool stuff. Is there, I know we kind of talked through a few examples already, but is there some other example of maybe something with CCAI or with Google in general that you think is like a really interesting application of AI?
So first, I'll give you a CCA example. Like very fascinating is that when we talk about contact center AI, we only think about contact centers, right? But I've seen applications of CCAI in cars. A lot of times you are speaking to your car, probably you're using CCAI. I've seen CCAI being used in the drive-throughs. So a lot of times you're ordering stuff through drive-through, you may be using CCAI. So it's more thinking out of the box that it's not only contact center, but think of underlying technology and where that can be applied. And something outside this space, which is very fascinating, and I've worked on this project before being a product manager for CCAI, was a vision recognition application where when doctors are doing eye surgery, sometimes they can make a mistake, and that can be loss of eyesight for the patient. So we build a machine learning model where if the doctor is about to make a mistake during the surgery, it would put the brakes on. It would stop the machine. Now imagine, like, of course, right, mistakes happen when humans are involved, right? But imagine how many, even if these accidents were like 100 in the population of 1 million, if I can save 90 of those, that's a big achievement. And I would like to have those kind of applications which are life-saving for all of us.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Alexei, I know from a Voximplant side, we've also had some customers use some of our AI technology and integration. Is there a customer, a specific one, or maybe a general trend you've seen for how they're using AI to integrate it into their product?
Well, there are a lot of different examples. So let's say we have our own voicemail detection or answering machine detection subsystem, which we created by training some model, which helps our system to understand if we reached a live person or we reached some voicemail prompt or pre-recorded message. Even sometimes it can be, recognized by this model. So that's one of the examples which we have been working on ourselves, but there are a lot of others. For example, we got a customer, they got kind of a dating app with video calls, and they've been using AI for figuring out where the face is and, removing the background, taking masks, a lot of stuff, which is pretty common these days because you can see it in Snapchat and Facebook. But in their case, it's even more important because they don't want people to see each other's faces, real faces immediately. So it's like one of the steps in the conversation. So first they use some masks, and after they are okay to continue, so they remove masks or something like that. It's just one of the funny examples here. In addition to that, yeah, I think that, a lot of cases we've seen related to conversational AI, so automating IVRs, automating customer service, customer experience solutions. There are a lot of interesting challenges in there. Let's say reducing latencies to something which helps people to better work with the system. It's also about speech recognition accuracy. So there are that many things that can be important, but still it's always exciting to hear these dialogues, which are pre-recorded usually from some real conversations, and you are listening to them and you're saying, wow, it's cool. You couldn't imagine that it's going to happen in our lifetime 15 years ago. So right now it's just a usual life. Every day you can talk with bot or text chat with bot and get some questions resolved. I think it's cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. So, and I see Carl chatted in a couple other examples of AI in use in a healthcare space. Carl, those sound like pretty awesome examples: reducing patient history and degenerative diseases, preventive drug use, recommended drug action, and correlations to treatment that can work from similar case histories. And I see it even saves some lives. So those are other great examples. Thanks for sharing those. So Kishore and Alexei, let's say that you're watching this and you're going, okay, this seems really interesting. How do I actually go about implementing AI into my product? What would be some strategies or tactics that you would say are really important to think about when you're, let's say, just starting in this journey?
Oh gosh, it's a tough question, and probably we can do a webinar on this topic itself, but let's take a stab at it. So I would look at some of the pointers I would say is, first look, does the ML fit into the product goal, right? It's not a silver bullet. There's, it's not necessarily going to help your product. So does it fit into your goal? Does the product how does the product behave around the ML is also an important aspect. How should a product start using ML? You should consider, right? Like, because measuring ML and measuring product behavior around ML is very critical. What are you comparing with? So when you introduce a product, like for example, when we introduced speech recognition into contact center, what were we comparing with, right? Were we comparing with existing humans? Were we comparing with existing speech technology? So you should have some comparative goals also. How quickly should this product change, right? ML may have a different life cycle compared to a product life cycle. So can you align? And then what interactions, actions, and controls do user have with respect to the AI ML? And finally, how could a product fail catastrophically, which of course, with or without ML, you should consider that.
Yeah, those are good things. I thought, what you were mentioning around what do you compare to is especially interesting. What do you see as a more common comparison? Like, do you see it more people comparing to what humans could do or to other speech technologies or some other benchmark?
Both. There are situations when humans don't want to talk to bots, right? Like,
Sure.
For example, when I'm talking to my customers, right, I would say this is not the technology. For example, virtual agents are not the technology for 911. Okay, let's accept that, right? Again, we have to understand the limitations of the AI. And at the same time, there are some places where, for example, collections, right? Do you want to talk to a human or do you want to talk to a bot? As a customer, I am probably more comfortable talking to the bot because nobody wants to discuss personal situation with another human. So talking to a bot is more helpful here. Even how empathetic bots are. So there's a lot of research in introducing emotions into how bots reply back. So those are also critical factors.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Alexei, how about you? What are some strategies and tactics that you think are important to think about when you're first starting to think about how to integrate AI into your product?
Well, Kishore mentioned a lot of this actually. So you need to understand if it's really applicable if you really need it, because it's not an easy thing to implement actually in the right way at least. So basically, you'll need to have right people, you'll need to have right data, you need to spend time to make this data clean up, prepare it. So we are on a way when ML and AI is becoming that advanced that it can figure out itself, but we are not there yet. So basically, you need to have a lot of preparations before you can create some reasonable model which will be doing some reasonable job for you. So the idea here is to understand everything and weight it and make the decision which is based on facts, not on hype. So basically, it's not like, oh well, ML and AI is everywhere, so I'm going to use it, and then you will have number of problems, especially if it's not the case when it's like required. So basically, it's much better to go some other way. But definitely, there are many cases when ML and AI is the perfect choice, and despite all these preparations you need to do to start working on your ML AI functionality, it still makes a lot of sense, especially if we then have a lot of value in either spending less time or money or spending people's time on something. So definitely, or an option to scale it to some specific size is another big advantage of ML and AI, because things which are possible with ML and AI, we are using people sometimes for that purpose, and it's really hard to scale people that fast, up or down, whatever. So that's the idea here. And after you are pretty sure about your choice, then you should be ready for this journey, because it will take some time.
Yeah, that makes sense. What would you say are maybe a couple mistakes people often make in the early part of their journey, or like things to avoid?
I think mistake is, again, thinking that AI can solve all the problems, right? Like AI
Sure.
is very, you have to be scoping it very narrow and take a narrow problem and introduce an AI in your product, right? And that is the mistake I've seen, like more or less, like people introducing AI and stuff, not understanding how AI will behave within a product and what will be the outcome. Because through natural existing, how what we have learned over like decades is how to do programming correctly, right? There are patterns and practices. We know how like agile works. We know how programming should be done, right? Like how object oriented or functional programming be done, right? So there's a lot of science, but there's a lot of art. And AI, that science and art both are developing right now. So you have to have people with those skills to introduce something like this within your product. And those are the mistakes generally we see. And that is why a lot of products fail within every organization, including ours, right? Products fail because we make some assumptions and they don't work.
Yeah, I agree about this silver bullet AI approach, which is pretty common. It's less common today than it was like a few years ago, fortunately, but it's still there. So like people in the industry say, there is no general purpose AI, and probably it won't appear anytime soon. So you need to be cautious about creating AI which will solve all your problems.
Yeah, those are good points. You just talked about kind of comparing to the past few years and what's changed. What would you say are some upcoming trends in AI that you see?
So I'll take a clue from Alexi, right? That artificial general intelligence is the next step in the AI research. And once we have some good results out of research, for example, in conversational AI space, Google just published a paper a few months back on a Mina bot. And the bot is, again, a generic bot where you can have an interaction, a human-like interaction. Now the question is that can you take something like that and use it in a particular domain? For example, I see a lot of audience here is in banking, right? Can you take that general purpose bot and make it a general purpose banking bot, right? or a financial advisor bot, right? Where a customer could speak to that bot without designing the structure of the bot in a general sense with aspects of that domain would be the next thing to watch out in conversational AI space.
Yeah, those are good points. Thanks. So those in the audience, feel free to chat in any questions you have. We've received some through the various channels I mentioned, so we can start to address some of those. I know probably a good amount of people in this meeting are PMs or in an engineering org. How do you work effectively as a product team with your engineering teams? That's a question that's been asked.
So it's the core of like working relationship is like empathy, right? And again, it's I think of this question as a cultural question, right? And that's why I'm a proud Googler, right? That I'm proud of the culture we are in. The focus for both product and engineering is empathy towards the customer. So we should not look inward, we should not look at each other, but we should look at who we are trying to serve. So empathy towards customer is the most important aspect of our culture, and that helps us drive and drive and work together. And most of our work is data driven, right? So you take out the emotions. For example, when we take a feature, right? How do we prioritize that feature? What we would do is we would collect information from customers, right? That how important this feature is to you, right? How important this feature is to other features within the product. And we look at those things, and then we take input from engineering. How many resources? What's the time, right? Again, the goal is not that at every cost you have to implement this feature, right? Empathy towards your engineering team, right? It's you can only do certain amount of work in certain amount of time, and that is very, very critical. So that's how our relationship, at least within Google and my personal experience being a product manager with engineering, is that we first of all don't think of each other as different teams, right? And with partners, like when I and Alexei are in a room and when we both are talking to the customer, right? Our end goal together is to serve the end customer, not look out for our interest, right? Look out for what the customer wants. And we take that feedback and we drive our engineering together.
Yeah, good points. Alexei, would you add anything to that?
Well, yeah, it was a great points from Kishore. I just wanted to comment on the previous question related to upcoming trends in AI. In addition to that, so my feeling that the next big thing, which is already kind of happening, but it's not there yet for 100%, is this so-called self-supervised learning, which helps us to let machine learning train itself a little bit, and it really significantly affects the speed of implementation of new models and making them better. Because if you always need people, a human factor in place to control the quality and everything, and to improve models, it's a little bit slow, let's call it this way, and also costs us time and money. So self-supervised learning is a good thing, and I hope that there will be more and more examples when machine learning improved itself. That's a great thing. Hopefully, it's not going to improve itself that far that we can't control it. It's one of the fears people have about it. But other than that, I think it's pretty important thing in the future. When it comes to the product management part of the question, I completely agree with Kishore that we have limited amount of resources when it comes to people we work with. Either it's our customers or it's our internal development team. So the idea is to prioritize things in the right way. And if even you did it wrong in the first place, then you need to admit it and kind of change things to let your team work effectively without all this deadlines and everything, which affects people in the wrong way, I think. So trying to kind of manage these two parts: your customers, which you want to make happy, and your employees, which you also want to make happy. So it's a good thing. So there should be some balance between both, and I think in this case you can be successful in terms of business and make your customers happy. One doesn't work without another. So it's like if you kind of forgot about your developers, which are overworking, trying to convince you or your customers, then in the end it will lead to bad customer experience. Maybe not not immediately, but down the road.
Yeah, there's definitely a balance there. It looks like another question we have is it correct to say AI is opinions expressed in algorithms?
So I would say AI is opinion expressed in data. So algorithms, and that is the difference between like traditional programming versus AI, right? Generally, AI, like there is neural network, depending on like what algorithms you're looking at. But let's say in this discussion, we bring neural networks, right? You cannot express opinions in neural network, but you certainly can express opinions in the data, right? And the data is biased, right?
Yeah.
And there is a lot of example of biased data. And we, as practitioners of AI, have to basically ensure that that bias is removed from the data, right? For example, we do not do like sentiment analysis from voice. We do it from text. The reason we do it that way is because we do not have enough data to differentiate between cultural aspect and emotions, right? For example, I am a loudspeaker. I speak loudly, but that doesn't mean that I am angry or frustrated, right? But if I was using AI, probably that's what it would detect. And there are many cases like image recognition, right? Within image recognition, like certain things, like we have seen AI data bias, right? Where a black person holding something which is not a gun would be detected like a gun. And that is a major problem. And so all the problems we see in the today's world are also in the data, and we have to be very conscious of that and remove it from the data. So as a product manager and all the AI practitioners in this session, look out for that bias in the data, which is most important.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And that could probably be a whole nother session as well.
When it comes to sentiment analysis, I think that it's better to use actually both voice and text. But I see why text is a safe bet to start with.
Yeah, that's fair. Another question came in. If you had one wish you could solve for any one AI problem, what would that be?
Wow. I'll let Alexi answer this. It's a tough one.
I'm not sure I understood the question correctly. Is it about AI itself? So something about AI?
Yeah, kind of like if you could just wave a magic wand and then something was fixed about AI or implementations of it. And maybe let's say other than the bias part, because we just addressed that.
Okay, I see. Yeah, it's a question of perspective. Today, probably there are some practical problems which you would like to solve using this magic wand, like, I don't know, using less hardware to train models, as an example, or something like that. Consume less power to use AI, which is a significant energy demand generator, as far as we know. But for the future, Well, we all seen Terminator, so there should be some kind of boundaries, which we believe AI should act accordingly to these boundaries, not to do harm to anybody. So that's probably a good thing to have.
So, I mean, as much as Carl, I would love to make a lot of money and Carl thinks that we can do sports betting. And trust me, I was in AI and machine learning in finance, and people have tried and failed at it. Global warming, probably something where AI can solve that problem, right? And I know the answer is no, it cannot. There's no magic bullet. But if that was one wish, I would probably focus on global warming, because where we all have to live to do something, right? And we have to be healthy. So global warming is something which I would focus on with AI.
Yeah, but it's a good thing to remember that it can be biased, and we don't know what it will decide about us to fix the global warming problem.
Absolutely. But hey, if it was a magic wand, right? So why not try to solve the problem?
Yeah, yeah. Another question that came in: how do you explain to your family or non-technical people what you do?
It's hard.
Yeah.
I have 4 kids, and my wife is not in the technology world. She's in a different domain, so it's hard to explain kids what I do. So I just say that I'm just an engineer in Google. That makes life easy.
Nice. It's a simple way to talk about it.
Yeah.
How about you, Alexei?
I'm usually trying to explain what communications is about, and if you want to connect point A with point B and also add something in between to make it more reasonable, that's what we are trying to do. But it's a very basic answer, probably.
Yeah, that makes sense though. All right, I think we should probably take 1 or 2 more questions and then wrap. Another one. Why is Dialogflow ES or CX a great solution in comparison to others?
So I'm not going to compare it to anything else, because again, it's not about comparison. The reason I think that both of these products are great products is because we have learned from our customers. We launched Dialogflow CX. We learned so much from our customers that we took all these learnings and we put it in Dialogflow CX. So there was a journey of at least 3 to 4 years. Plus, we are not shy to introduce bleeding edge AI technology into this product, right? We do a lot of research. We work with these research teams very closely. So when a new research happens, it gets introduced within these products, because we want to offer latest and greatest to our customers. For example, like with Dialogflow CX, you have 20,000 intents. So imagine the kind of huge part you could build with this product. Also, this product is not about rip and replacing, right? And that is why we are here. It's all about understanding strengths and weaknesses. We understand our partners, right? Like you, Voximplant, has their own skills, and we have our own skills. A better solution for end customer is to work together rather than coming up with a solution which is not even complete. So those, I think, there are many more things I can speak about Dialogflow CX again for a whole hour, but those are the most important things I believe about Dialogflow CX and ES.
I probably can add a few cents if you like. So from our perspective, when it comes to Dialogflow product, one of the advantages it brings that it combines not only natural language understanding part of the mix, but also has Google's speech to text technology and text to speech technologies all in the same product, which actually gives additional flexibility and advantages to the product. So not like every NLU or NLP solution on the market can offer that type of integration between all parts. required for conversational AI. In addition to that, Google has pretty significant infrastructure, so you can be sure that if you really need to scale this to bigger customers, for bigger number of requests, and that kind of stuff, it can be done with help of partners apparently, but that's why we are working together.
Yeah, great. Thanks for adding that. Is there anything that you all would want to add to the discussion before we wrap up here? Any closing words?
Well, I think that I would add something like AI future looks brighter than ever, and it's really interesting to see how it evolves in time. And I probably don't remember any other technology which was evolving that fast, to be honest. So it's about people who are ready to learn fast, maybe without breaking things, but to learn fast, really.
Yeah, and I would say that conversational AI as a space is maturing very, very fast. So now, we had character user interface, then we had graphical user interface. A new space is being created, which is conversational interface. So there are new skills being developed like conversational architects. So I would invite like larger audience to look into this space, because as I said, you could talk to almost everything in your house now. So invest in that and try to start building bots. Like for simplest of the simple thing, build a bot and see how you should improve that bot. And then at some point, we will be able to solve most complex problems with bots.
Yeah, those are great closing words. Thanks all. Well, I hope everyone has appreciated this discussion and learned something. Thanks for the audience participation and questions as well. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us individually, or you can reach us on our social channels as well. Thanks. Have a good day.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Yeah.